Hey guys, so we are doing the second to last American Horror Story video, which I'm gonna say right out the gate that I'm kind of glad. And I know that's super negative, but I'll get more into why in a bit. So I'm just gonna jump right into episode 8 and 9. Next week is the season finale, which it's only 10 episodes, which makes this season one of the shortest seasons. And I feel mixed about that because they could have, should I get into it now? They could have made it so much better, I think, with like 2 more episodes. But in a way, because this is basically a Coven sequel, I'm kind of glad that it's on the shorter side and we don't have to see more and more Coven. So episode 8 was actually really good for me. I saw online that some people thought it was like a filler episode, but honestly, any episode that has nothing to do with the Coven, but has little to do with the Coven is a good episode for me. Now, this one I did have issues with because we have yet another plot timeline in this, and we see Evan Peters play, I think, his 5th character in this season, and it takes place at the same timeline as right before the apocalypse with Wilhelmina Venable as their secretary, which I'll get further into that. But yeah, so it's like she played alongside, like Venable played alongside 2 different characters of Evan Peters, so it's like a little bit confusing. Obviously I'm following, it's not hard since he changes his hair every time, but to me it's like, oh, another Evan Peters, like another one. I feel like they could have had a different actor play that role because I don't know, maybe I'm the only one that thinks that he plays too many roles in this season. Anyway, we'll get further into that as we get in more into the episode, but first we see Michael come across his allies being burned, and then he has a confrontation with Cordelia, and he has that decision to make that he can become allies with her and become a good person, or stay on the path that he is with his father and stay evil, which obviously that's the one he picks and says, I'm gonna kill you all. And then I really liked the scene where he goes into the woods and like lays down in this pentagram waiting for his father to give him instruction of some kind, and he like hallucinates a bunch, and I really liked that. I like seeing Michael when he's weak. I feel like that makes him a stronger character because he's not just so one-sided, you know? We don't just see his badass side like in the beginning of the season. We get to see his progression into becoming that person and that powerful, confident, like cocky person, and see his struggle throughout discovering who he is and his powers and things like that. So I really enjoyed that scene overall in the forest. And then we get a little rocky. Like I said, I like this episode, but the major reason why I liked it is because we don't see a lot of the Coven in it, so take that with a grain of salt because it's not the best episode in the world, because we're getting thrown so many plot points. This is always what American Horror Story does, and it's so frustrating every year. They throw in one too many plot lines or storylines. Like there's just always one too many. Like Asylum to me is almost a perfect season, but maybe if they got rid of the alien storyline, it would have been the perfect season. But they always have to throw in like new characters, new storylines, like new timelines. And sometimes, especially in this season, I find it's kind of hard to keep up. So on that note, we move on to the Satanist church, which I kind of roll my eyes at because it just seems like they're making Satanists look like a joke, like the most stereotypical Satanist person you can think of, and that's what they put into this episode because they're trying to be funny with it. Like I see what they're trying to do with the comedy aspect and everything. They're like, Satanists are horrible people, so let's have them do shitty things. But that's, I want to know if there's any Satanists watching my videos that could, you know, say your thoughts on it. I just want to know from like that perspective, because from what I understand, they're not evil. They're not evil people. They're not like this season, but maybe this is just like a different world where that is actually how Satanists are. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of a joke when they're like, what bad things have you done today to end the world? And she's like, that's not bad enough. I'll tell you what I did. And it's like bragging about their sins and stuff to like bring about the Antichrist to end the world. It just felt very jokey to me, and I know that was their goal, but for me it didn't like land. So we see Michael end up in the church. He's like sitting in the back watching this all happen. And then we meet Madeline, which is a character that was sitting next to him. And she like takes him home and then they talk and stuff. But let me just ask you. So Madeline is played by Harriet Sampson Harris, who is actually Felicia Tillman in my favorite show of all time, Desperate Housewives. And she literally played Felicia Tillman. Like, it looked like her and Zach sitting at the table. Let me know if you know what I'm talking about and if you agree, but it literally just felt like she was playing her old role as Felicia Tillman and she was talking to Zach and like caring for Zach. I don't know. That's not really relevant to the show. I just thought I'd point that out because there's a bunch of like the Satanist church leader. I know her from Will and Grace, which is just a very weird, obviously actors play different things. We know because of Evan Peters and Sarah Paulson playing a million characters in this season, but it's just weird to see them in a different show like this. So ultimately things happen, things go down, and they end up at Silicon Valley. I don't know if I'm the only one that when this started, I appreciate the like explanation for the cooperative and like getting to see the backstory of that in Silicon Valley, which I just think it's so weird. Like apparently that is like the root of all evil is in Silicon Valley. I don't know that stereotype. I don't know if I'm the only one, but this is where we see Evan Peters' new character with a bowl cut, like him and his friend, who's, you know, also plays another character in the season. They make sex robots and they're addicted to cocaine, and it's just like a very bizarre situation. Again, I feel like they put these characters in there and this storyline for comedic relief of some kind and a little bit explanation. I don't know why I have this thing about like having comedy in American Horror Story. I'm not a huge fan of it. Again, they take the most obnoxious stereotype that you can think of about Silicon Valley people and turn it into these people. So I feel like that's just what American Horror Story is doing right now. They're just taking the most like generic and then amplifying it hugely and making it like so unrealistic that these people would actually exist, and then putting it in the show to be extreme. I don't know. But to me, it makes it all kind of a joke. Like I don't take them seriously because I know no one like that, and doesn't mean that they don't exist, but to me it makes it like a joke, and I don't necessarily like that in my American Horror Story. So this is how we see Miss Mead, the robot version, come to life. And then that's kind of that. So then we get into episode 9, which a lot happens in episode 9 and a lot of things are revealed. That's like a plot twist, but again, it's another Coven episode. I feel like we've only had 2 to 4 episodes so far that are not Coven, which 4 out of 9 is pretty good. I'm counting like the first 2 episodes, but obviously next episode is going to be, you know, about the apocalypse finally, because that's something we're missing in this season. So in the beginning of this episode, we end up back at Silicon Valley, right? Because we figure out that the 2 guys can like control Miss Mead, and she suggests to Michael, hey, maybe those 2 guys know what to do about ending the world, because those guys are just over life. They're like over the world. We're like, whatever. And then they get there and they tell Michael it's not dark magic that's going to end the world. It's going to be, you should use the Illuminati. So then it's revealed that the Illuminati recently changed their identity to the cooperative. And then that's how we figure out what the cooperative has been this whole time, the Illuminati. I don't know if I love that detail or if I hate it. I really don't know how to feel about it, because I feel like it's a little bit of a cop-out, like the easy route to be like, well, who has the most power in the world? The cooperative is said to have the most power. Obviously, we see that in the beginning of the season, but who has the most power now? The Illuminati. And then we see them start making plans about creating the outpost, and that only the best people who can afford to get into the outpost can go, which we all know from the beginning of the season and how that started. But now we're really seeing like just, it seems like weeks before the apocalypse now is where we're at in the timeline. And then they're going to convince the most powerful people in the world to drop bombs all over the world. And that is what is going to cause the apocalypse, which is honestly my biggest fear of the cause of the apocalypse. But first, he must get revenge on the witches. So we have the character Dinah lets Michael into the coven, and then we see him kill all the witches that we have come to know and love from Coven, like the actual season Coven. Whether they stay dead, I don't know, because at first I was like, okay, they died, whatever, because no one's really dead in American Horror Story, are they? But then it's actually revealed later that Madison remembers he can erase people, like erase their souls. There's nothing. So when Cordelia tries to save them and resurrect them, they just disappear into thin air. So I'm assuming that they're gone and dead now, which is really sad. Like, it seemed so rushed. It seemed like he walked in, killed them, and we didn't really get much, but he killed like major characters from Coven. So it's like, I was a little bit disappointed in that whole scene because they're really, I don't know what I was expecting or wanting if that was the case. I don't know. They determined that the only other option to, you know, bring them back is to stop the event from happening completely, like go back in time and stop it from happening, which apparently in the witch world, no one has ever succeeded and everyone who has tried has died. But they believe that Mallory is the only witch that is strong enough to actually attempt this. And so they do, and she doesn't succeed, although I really liked that whole situation where they go back in time and then this witch tries to save her family. Mallory comes in and tries to save her. I liked that whole thing. It's like the first Coven situation that I really liked. I think it's because it's a new character and it's like a new power that hasn't been talked about or introduced in the actual season of Coven. And then a lot happens towards the end. Cordelia says maybe I should just die so Mallory can be, you know, fully powerful because she, you know, everyone believes that she's the next Supreme. I still don't think that's the case. I don't think so. Someone pointed out in the comments that she wears a headband made of leaves and or just like flowers or something, and that could be symbolic of like Jesus Christ. So maybe she is some kind of angel or Jesus, I don't know. But I think something else is going on with her, and it's not just she's a witch, you know, because she's so powerful. So I feel like there's something else there. But clearly we know the apocalypse happens, so it's not like she stops it, but maybe she gets that talent down, you know, the power of going back in time, and she can actually reverse the apocalypse. What if that happens? One other thing that we got to see in these episodes was Miss Venable's like true role before the apocalypse happened. We didn't really know where she came from, her backstory much or anything like that. So it's interesting to see what her true ranking was in the cooperative all along. And then we see that she was actually the secretary of these two guys who had like sold their soul to the devil and joined the Illuminati. They gave her the opportunity to run an outpost, which we all know from the beginning of the season. She gets to run it however she wants to, and she decides to run it that way. But now we know the backstory to that, which, you know, I enjoyed. So my prediction for next week, I haven't seen the like next week on American Horror Story. I don't watch those because I like to be, you know, in suspense. But obviously I think we know we'll see the apocalypse happen because it's all planned and ready to go. I'm excited to see how they're gonna wrap up this season because it's kind of, to me, been a little all over the place, and I hate saying that because so many people are loving this season, and I feel like I might have just like really high standards when it comes to American Horror Story because I loved Asylum so much that I want another season like that, and I feel like that's maybe unrealistic to ask for. So I'm trying to keep an open mind with everything, but you cannot deny that this is a Coven sequel. Like, this whole season has been a Coven sequel. My biggest issue with this is we didn't get any apocalypse. We got a lot of beginning and pre-apocalypse and like how we get to the apocalypse, but we literally had like 1 or 2 episodes post-apocalypse, and it wasn't even what I wanted from it. I think if they made it 2 episodes longer, they could have included more storyline of what happens after the apocalypse, because I have a feeling, if I'm right with Mallory, nothing's been revealed about her yet. Unless she is the Supreme, then that's boring. Like, that's a boring plot point because they never really confirmed it. So I feel like next episode is gonna be really rushed. So I feel like it could have been even 1 more episode longer to get a lot more post-apocalypse, because that's what I wanted. When you call a season apocalypse, I don't wanna know necessarily, maybe 1 or 2 episodes, sure, of backstory of how we get there, but I wanted to see the world after the apocalypse, not, oh, what happened after Coven. That's not what I wanted from an apocalyptic season. You know, 90% of the season is made up of pre-apocalypse and what happened with the witches. This entire season was a fan service, and that's fine, but it needs to have balance, and I don't think we're getting much balance at all. We had 1 episode about Murder House, and I am not gonna count Michael Langdon being a Murder House crossover because we've only seen 1 episode of original Murder House characters. Michael Langdon was in it for like 2 seconds at the end of Murder House. I'm not gonna count him as an original character in Murder House. So technically, is it a crossover? Sure. Is it like literally a crossover? No. I'm sure my opinion isn't very popular because a lot of people love Coven. I'm included in that, but I didn't want another Coven season. I was fine just leaving it where it left off at the end of the season of Coven. It, you know, ended, it was rounded out, it was good, it's whatever. I didn't need follow-up to that. And I feel like because it did so well, it's like one of the most successful seasons, and they were struggling a little bit for a few seasons there. They were like, how do we come back from this? Let's just give them another Coven season. Sorry, I'm very passionate about this and very heated about it because there's only one episode left, and I don't feel like we're gonna get what I wanted out of this season, which is a lot of apocalypse stuff. That is the horror to me in this season, is the nukes being dropped. We got that for like literally 10 minutes in the first episode, the beginning of the first episode, and that was it. I hope that we get more in the finale, but as of right now, I'm a little bit disappointed with the season as a whole. Let me know if I'm the only one that feels this strongly about it and this disappointed in it, because all I've been seeing is a lot of people really excited and like loving it. So tell me if I'm completely, you know, off the mark here on my opinion, and share your opinions down below. I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you soon.